New York City, Radio Row. You should have seen it. You should have heard it. Hundreds of shops selling every radio and radio part imaginable. Vacuum tubes, antennas. Oh, my first year in business, it was 1921, if I recall correctly. I did $85,000. $85,000. Not bad for a Russian boy just off the ship in America. Started selling a little bit of everything. Got into automobile antennas and kits when Motorola started putting radios into cars. Then something called a television hit. And the war, of course, sent military and government orders to the moon. Sure, it was the golden age of radio. It was also golden for the Avnet family.
Dad picked the right business, that's for sure. I took a job at the Brooklyn Navy Yard during the war. Electronic parts were everywhere, literally. Dad agreed that we should focus on one in particular, connectors. They were in everything, every electronic device, still are. So we got busy stocking up on surplus for pennies on the dollar. Opened our first big facility, the place on North Moore Street in Manhattan, in '44.
After the war, they needed connectors, and we had them. Simple as that, really. In '55, we were doing well and decided to go ahead and incorporate. Called ourselves Avnet Electronics Supply Company. Lester, he'd been working with me on and off since he was just a boy, and he took on the president's role. We decided we needed a place out on the West Coast to take care of orders for the military and aerospace companies out there, too. My son Robert, who was our chairman, he moved out there. I was VP and treasurer.
Hallelujah for the Soviet Union. The space race, the arms race, great for business. Opened up a place in Sunnyvale, too. That's Silicon Valley now.
In '57, Bendix gave us a connector franchise, first for both of us. We did our first million in '56. By the end of the decade, we had warehouse, assembly, and engineering sales facilities coast to coast. Could get most of our connector assembly orders to our customers in less than 24 hours, too, and no one else could do that. Of course, we were mostly connectors then, but we stocked other components too, like capacitors and diodes.
We needed some capital to expand the business, so we went public in '59 on the American Stock Exchange. The next year, we made our first acquisition, British Industries. It was the hi-fi equipment distributor. Gerard turntables, Wharfdale speakers, the best. That one moved us over to the New York Stock Exchange too, the first distributor on the big board. And in 1968, we entered the big leagues, joining the esteemed Fortune 500 list at number 467. The sky was the limit.
When I came on board in '62, things were just heating up. After they bought my company, Hamilton Electro Sales, biggest components distributor on the West Coast, well, then came Channel Master, Brownwell Electro, Valley Forge, Guild Guitars. I always remember the publicity shot with the Beatles. And of course, Leon Matches's companies, Time Electronics and Electro Air on the East Coast. And we were international too, with facilities in Canada and the Far East. Oh, and don't forget those Shaw licenses. Hundreds of governments and businesses worldwide used it to make precision molds for everything from toys to rocket parts. Heck, for a while there, we even made record albums with the Chipmunks and Jan and Dean. But our first big plays were with Motorola, Fairchild, Intel, and AMD.
I was excited to join the company in the big deal, diversify. It was a good strategy. The good fortunes of one market could balance troubled times in another. How many companies did Avnet buy in the '60s? Oh, close to 40, I'd say. By the time I came on as CEO in 1970, we manufactured or distributed everything from TV antennas and tubes to car parts, perfume bottles, tape recorders, trophies, industrial motors, and of course, electronic components. But after all those acquisitions, we needed to tighten the ship, prune some businesses, expand some others, combine groups. Went well, actually, despite the mid-'70s recession. Slashed the debt, raised earnings sixfold, sales even topped $1 billion.
By the time I took over as CEO in 1980, Avnet was a financial powerhouse. But I was a technology guy at heart, and I knew that Avnet should return to its roots as it looked to the future. I also started investing in the computer business. Talk about the wave of the future. The microprocessor and integrated circuit were opening up whole new worlds. By '82, we had franchises for computer systems, printers, software. The big deal which put us on the map was digital equipment. But I may be more famous for a few things I brought to the company culture, like recognition programs for our employees, a fight song, and an appreciation for advertising and branding.
Things were going great in the 80s. Avnet was the #1 distributor. But that semi-downturn in 85-86 was brutal. Things had to change in the technology industry, and I decided Avnet would be the one to do it. We also had more than 100 stocking facilities. Multiply that by all the suppliers out there, well, you get the picture. Talk about redundant inventory. Centralize and automate, I said. Networking and overnight shipping had finally gotten to the point where it was possible. We opened our Peabody, Massachusetts mega warehouse in 1985, our Chandler, Arizona facility 2 years later. Kept some smaller stocking and assembly facilities and in-plant stores. Networked all the sales offices to the warehouses. That's when the Genesis system was born. It was an idea whose time had come. Information technology could enhance productivity and customer service. Revolutionized Avnet. Revolutionized the industry.
I started in this industry putting parts away in the warehouse. Worked my way up through most jobs at electronics marketing, but spent a portion of my sales career at Avnet with our computer products business. In 1989, I was given the opportunity to run the computer division. We were still considered a bit of a black sheep then, what with lower margins and more complexity, systems versus components. We were struggling just to make a profit. Good thing we stuck it out.
Well, if I was to put it in a nutshell, the 60s were about diversifying, the 70s about streamlining operations, the 80s about refocusing on technology, centralizing and automating. The 90s, well, that was about going where our customers and suppliers were. It was about globalization. They weren't shy about crossing borders to find inexpensive manufacturing or new markets. We needed to be where they were. Bought the Access Group in '90 in the UK, our first European component distributor. This rocketed us into the largest markets in Europe, Middle East, and Africa fairly quickly. Expanded into Asia with Hong Kong's WKK Semiconductors in '95. Then Australia, Singapore, Korea, and India. We didn't neglect the North and South American markets either. But the best may have been the Hallmark Electronics acquisition in '93. Brought us another $750,000 in sales and thousands of customers. And Hallmark Computer, which finally got us the HP line. Great acquisition, just great.
We averaged an acquisition every 3 months for the entire decade. Our revenue showed it. We went from a $2 billion U.S. company in '90 to a $6 billion enterprise headquartered in Phoenix, Arizona, and selling in 59 countries 10 years later. Some of the biggies: the Weber deal, which brought us the EBV Group and RKE Systems; Savoir Technology, which drove us to be IBM's #1 distributor, our first billion-dollar relationship; and Sunrise in China, although that was in 2000, got us well established in the fastest growing market in the world. What happened? The perfect storm happened. The economy slowed worldwide. Demand for components and computer products plummeted. And after a few years of Y2K and .com ordering, the supply chain was loaded with inventory. But as Leon said after the '85 debacle, with every cloud, there's a silver lining. Sure, it wasn't much fun, but we took the cost out of the business, focused on return on capital and economic profit, reduced working capital and generated cash to pay down debt, realigned the business, and we got into the perfect position to buy Memic, our largest acquisition and only global one. Now, we're in Japan, and we've enhanced our design expertise everywhere in the world.
Avnet is in a position to pioneer new technology as it evolves.
It's about service. That's what people like.
We're going to take that strategy into Europe and around the world.
We're going to be the biggest, going right to the very top.
Today, we still focus on adding value, as we did back in 1950. But now, that includes Avnet's services and solutions offerings. Our talented employees help companies around the world with everything from engineering expertise as new ideas come to life, to tech support before and after complex systems have been installed and put into use. Not to mention financing, programming, marketing, integrating, and distributing technology products. Companies turn to Avnet for two simple reasons. We save them money and/or we help them grow faster, thereby accelerating their success. We think our founders would be proud of the fact that we are one of only 350 companies that have been listed on the New York Stock Exchange for 50 years. This special historical marker distinguishes Avnet as a premier company, one with global scale and scope, adaptability, a strong culture, and conservative financial discipline. We thank each of our talented employees who have made our company so great, our trading partners who have placed their trust in us to deliver the highest value, our shareholders who invest in us, as well as our business and community partners who join with us to help make the world a better place to live and work. We're proud of our legacy and our accomplishments thus far, and look forward with excitement to achieving far more in the next 50 years than we can possibly imagine today.